Welcome to FortyGuard's podcast. I'm your host Ahmed, and today's guest is going to be Sadiq, founder of FortyGuard. Their mission is to actually figure out urban temperature and to cool cities down. But how? And is it going to be effective? And more importantly, is it going to make a difference? That's what we're going to be finding out in this episode, so stay tuned. Jay, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad that I get to sit with you. Because honestly, when I heard about the topic of what you do, urban temperature, you're fighting urban heating, I'm like, what is this guy doing?
Yep.
I got really, really excited to talk to you. So before we get into it, there's a lot to talk about.
Nice.
I'd like you to please pick one of these cards. Don't look at it. We're going to, reveal it later. But please, before we start.
3 options.
3 options.
I'm going to go with the third option because this is the third year in FortyGuard.
Amazing. All right. Perfect. Okay. So, third year with FortyGuard.
Yep.
Before we start with knowing how we got to the third year, I'm actually interested in knowing how you got to be the youngest executive director chosen by this magazine a couple of years ago. Where did it start?
So it probably started at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
When I finished high school, my father wanted to take me to the corporate world and wanted me to have a hands-on experience so I can become a guy who really understands business on the ground.
Okay.
And I wanted to do business administration. Also, my father was generous, giving us the option to pursue what, profession we wanted to have in life. So I started as a salesman in a classified newspaper in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
Yep. So literally the second day after finishing high school, I joined the company. I was the youngest employee in a company with 10,000 employees.
Wow.
And selling classifieds on the street was very interesting. It's a commission game, and you had to scale and find a way for you to, make a lot of sales, but also make a lot of commission. I wanted to do things differently. Okay. And since childhood, I think my parents have invested a lot of time in us to become or to keep up with the technology.
Okay.
So I was very much into coding. I was very much into digitizing things.
Yeah.
Video games, of course, like any other kid. But I really love to hack the games and even change things about the players and the way that we used to do them. So when I joined the classified newspaper and I had good mentors, which I give them credit for, they helped the company with another team, of course, digitize the way that we put classifieds ad on the internet.
Amazing.
Yep. So
you're basically there from the start?
From the start. So 4 years almost in the company. We did that. Now people started to put ads on the internet.
Yeah.
With a little bit of, scaling into the corporate ladder, but also ego. As a kid, I wanted to leave and start my own company.
Yeah.
And that's where I started my first business in digital marketing.
Okay.
And
so FortyGuard is not your first one?
Nope.
Okay.
FortyGuard is my fourth one.
Lucky number 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think lucky number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Of course.
They've been all a very good experience that I'm lucky actually to have and pursue. So in the first company, I worked in the market with a lot of enterprise and in the public and private sector. So we had like really good clients and I had a platform for me to kind of exercise in my passion for digital and technology, but in the sector of media.
Okay.
And it was a good place for us to scale back then because there was a lot of traditional and conventional media.
Yeah.
And the market was hungry for young talent to come in and, make those small boutiques, but also take this corporate brand and whatever activities that they've been doing to somewhere digitally out there in the internet and so on and so forth. So managed to inspire a lot of good folks who were very creative and come from different nationalities. And, some of them had to resign and come and join us on that journey, which was very interesting. And we built a very interesting company back then.
Okay.
That came with a lot of financial returns as well.
That's fantastic.
Yep, for the partners and myself, and of course the employees too.
Yeah.
And I think that experience gave me, because the branding is not only the company.
Of course.
It's you as a brand.
Exactly.
And people sometimes, when they work with companies, they work with individuals.
Yeah.
And we always tend to forget that, by the way. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. So I think I proved myself in the market back then, and I created a reputation, which was really good. And I gave a lot of jobs, and in Abu Dhabi, successful stories become the highlight very quickly because it's an enabling ecosystem. So after I did my digital marketing, I got the chance to start a private equity firm.
Okay.
And it didn't just start by, appointing Jay as the, general manager of e-holding entity
Of
and,
course not.
running, 30 plus companies. It wasn't that case. So I had a chance at the beginning to come and prove myself.
Okay.
And I did very well.
Amazing.
So I turned a couple of businesses into profitable organizations.
All of this, by the way, is in Abu Dhabi, right?
All of this is in Abu Dhabi.
City of chances.
Yeah, well, my father did it. My family did it.
Okay.
My brothers and sisters did it.
Yeah.
And I can do it. My friends did it. Everyone did it.
Yeah.
Our neighbor did it. Everyone did it. So, this is how I, earned it. It wasn't given to me. I earned it. I worked so hard on myself. I used to spend a tremendous amount of hours in the office where everyone is outside, you know, in coffee shops. And I studied hard as well. And I saw that I had a platform to take whatever that I was learning in university and apply it immediately into the real world.
Yes.
So at the university, I was doing business administration.
Okay.
And I also had very good mentors and very good instructors that I really owe them a lot of the success that I have in my journey. And it was interesting because a lot of that science, I would call it, and the whatever theoretical exercise that we had in universities, I took it into application. And so I spent time at the office applying all of those things that I've learned. And also when I joined the private equity firm, I got to travel internationally and visit a lot of places and develop a network of a lot of diversity, but also a lot of access.
Okay.
And, with all of that in place, it's opportunity.
Of course. Of course. But can I ask you a question? How did you come up with the name FortyGuard? That's so not common.
Okay.
It's like a number and an action.
So the made up story is that.
So we're getting a made up story. We're like 5 minutes into this thing, you're already getting a made up story.
So the distance between the Earth's surface and the ozone layer is about 40 kilometers. And the ozone layer is a guard to Earth. So we call it FortyGuard.
Interesting.
Yep.
So you're not just doing this because you feel like it's a community service. You're actually invested in it personally.
Yeah, 100%.
Urban temperature. How did you wake up one day and be like, you know what, this is what I want to do?
So the story is, I didn't just wake up into that. As an entrepreneur, you become a problem solver. Yeah. And you always look for the next big thing. You're a very ambitious person. And what happens is that because of your personality as an entrepreneur, you just want to find the next thing that you could be obsessed about. And also the interesting thing is that good founders, they get obsessed about the problem, not the solution.
Yes.
So it's really not about the company. It's like, what is this company is solving for? That's the problem that you get obsessed about. I was born and raised in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
And, this is a place where I wanted to contribute. And I wanted to do something different because there is a very big space for you to scale, to build things, and to be recognized for your efforts and your work and your dedication to solve for things. And this is what I saw reflecting on my father's contribution to the country and others from my family who did so before me. I was, after 3 different startups, I was on a break from my 3rd startup where I failed miserably.
Okay.
And there were a lot of lessons that I had in my 3rd startup that I needed to take the time back to reflect on, to really pretty much understand, to educate myself, to go through, a self journey somehow, to understand what could be the next thing that I'm obsessed about. And of course, temperature is something that we are all challenged by in the UAE and in many places all across the globe.
Yes.
So the story began by an article. I read that LA was trying to cool LA by painting roads with a white pigment. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. I want to cool down Abu Dhabi, but I don't think a white pigment would work.
Okay.
So I started to read more about the science on what is the problem.
Okay.
And I came across a lot of terminologies that I didn't understand at the beginning. Like, for instance, the urban heat island effect. I was like, what is that? And many other things that it took me almost a year to learn about.
Okay.
And I wanted to build a science, material science company that can solve for this problem, but not with a reflective pigment. I wanted to build something colorless into our roadway asphalt and concrete. So asphalt and concrete make up almost 30 to 40% of our city's infrastructure.
They do, yeah.
And they contribute a lot to heat.
And they're black.
And they're black. But when you put a white pigment, you reflect, of course, the solar, but that is reflected into pedestrians to protect the road or into buildings. And now buildings need more energy to cool them.
Okay.
So you contribute more to the carbon footprint. And of course, in the UAE, and this is also a blessing, is that we have very good roads.
Yes.
So you don't drive anywhere less than 40 kilometers per hour, which is really a very good thing. So applying those reflective pigments won't, comply with the safety regulations and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So how can we build something colorless? And this is where everything started.
Okay.
So I looked into a solution that is out there in the market that I could compete with, and I found none. So I was like, I will build it.
Wow.
And that was the inception of FortyGuard.
Okay.
So we worked on the asphalt, and interestingly as well, it was also the early days of the Corona time.
Oh, wow.
So the pandemic came, and we had to do it on our own, right?
Okay.
So the movement was very restricted. Yep. So literally built a lab in my own house, turned the guest room into a laboratory, and started to buy a lot of machinery and different things. And we spent a lot of time trying to understand the problem.
Okay.
And talking to the market, to clients or to technical folks who build asphalt and concrete before, which is again a domain that I have no experience in whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we started to communicate with, the market. What is it that we're trying to build for and how we intend to build it.
Okay.
And I think it's a very interesting journey, which is like really organic, that I don't give myself credit for as much as I give it to the time that we spend doing it. Where when we built the asphalt and now we have a product, we took it to a client and the client was like, Jay, love the solution, you pre-qualify, technically everything is standardized, all approvals are in place, tell us where are you going to put it.
Okay.
And my answer was like, everywhere.
Wow.
Put it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the commercial folks didn't just buy it. Like, no, you can't put it everywhere.
Yeah.
You have to decide where are the hotspots in our city. And that's where you are going to put it, right?
Okay.
Not everywhere is hot.
So you can at least level out all the hotspots to make them cooler.
Of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there are good practices out there. You can't just call everything hot relatively to what the temperature variation is in the city.
Yeah.
So interestingly, we now started to look into the data, right?
Yeah.
But again, this started from where? From the market, from the client.
Yeah.
So again, it wasn't our idea. We had a sense of purpose. We had a sense of direction.
But
we
they
had a
guided
vision.
you. Yeah.
We had a mission. We wanted to cool cities and we wanted to do it with material.
Yeah.
But the client was looking for the data.
Yeah.
And this is where we realized that the problem is with the data, which is the understanding of the problem.
Okay.
So we looked into the satellite level data.
That's what you were showing me before we started recording. I was blown away because I thought that, whatever you're going to read on these phones, right? You're going to zoom in and you're going to be like, what? It looks the same. It doesn't change. And which is impossible because I'm sure a couple of kilometers away from here is going to be a different temperature.
You could find 10 degrees Celsius difference in temperature almost every kilometer square.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm a happy tenant at the Sustainable City.
Nice.
And one of the things that they do is that they reduce the temperature by a couple of degrees. And it makes a difference for me and the kids and everything. And they're also available here in Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, which is a great concept of how you can actually transfer that technology and make it part of urban living and head on treat the temperature.
It is. It's a very good livability exercise. And I think they've done a very good job. We worked with folks like Masdar City in Abu Dhabi and Eldar Properties as well. And we worked with the Sustainability City.
Yeah. And
I think what I truly admire about them is that working with us, they come to us and say, Jay, we don't want to build cities for the sake of architecture.
Yeah.
Because everything can be nice, but we want to build it for the sake of solution. We want livability to be the drive behind everything that we do for people who are going to occupy those spaces. And I think this is where the interest came into alignment with what we're building and what the market is looking for.
Okay.
And I think also there is a drive for sustainability.
Of course.
And there is no way that you could go to someone, whether that is a corporation or an individual or a policymaker or in the leadership, and tell them, we want to apply sustainability. And they would say, oh, no, we don't want to improve people's lives. Of course, everyone wants to do it, right?
Of course.
But how can we do it?
How can you do it exactly?
And I think everyone, the folks that we work with and whoever is the stakeholder involved, really understands the involvement of tech. Okay. And they also appreciate that we bring tech to incentivize existing practices. So we don't discount what the science and the engineers are doing.
Yeah.
We just incentivize what they're doing and tech becomes an enabler to kind of really scale the information around everything that we can use to build much more sustainable and livable cities.
You see, that's what I really want to know. How are you actually implementing this technology to figure out where the hotspots are, where our phones can't even tell?
So after we realized that the problem is with the data, we also realized that half of the solution is understanding the problem. So we wanted to spend a lot of time building a measurement tool so we can understand the problem. And here is an interesting, let's say, it's a pivotal moment in my life as well, where we decided to pivot the business and to only do data.
Oh.
So interestingly, and I'm okay saying that, almost trashed everything that we were doing before and focused ruthlessly
on data.
When
did you figure this out? So you're 3 years old. This was
a year ago.
A year ago. So 2 years into it, you're like, you know what? This is what our focus should be.
Yeah. And, I think innovation is focus. And I think what really helped FortyGuard through its journey, and I bet this is what will help FortyGuard throughout the journey and the trajectory that we have for what we're building, is focus.
Yeah.
So we decided that, look, we're going to only do temperature.
Okay.
Only urban temperature, anywhere from the roadway surface up to a building rooftop. And we're not going to do indoor. We're not going to do anything else correlated to temperature, like, air quality, like humidity and all of those other things, because there are a lot of good folks doing those things. But the gap is in the understanding of urban temperatures. So we say, this is where we're going to focus. And again, remember the word focus. That's the magic word.
Yeah.
So we took that focus, and because there's a lot of data involved, this is what I continue to argue, the benefit of artificial intelligence and the benefit of, big data and all the other tech that is out there is that the human capacity cannot process a lot of this data. And we would need a machine to help us, where we, of course, design everything and architect everything in a manner that allows us to get the best out of it, so we can come up with the best information, with the best decisions, and of course, with the best service and solutions.
Okay.
So we decided to build an engine. And I remember one of those very interesting sessions, gave a speech to a university, and there were a lot of MBA students, like 60 plus of them. And everyone is totally smarter than me, right? I would be the dumbest one in the room compared to how much they've achieved in their lives. And, the McKinseys, and all of those folks. And one of them came to me after the session. It's like, Jay, I love what you're doing. You are building the brain of temperature.
Basically.
Yep. So
you are.
Yep. So we realized that, software can be used in a lot of proprietary ways, like really good manner.
Yeah.
And we wanted to build a software that becomes the engine, where this brain can pretty much access a lot of information, which is data. And this is where the focus was as well. And this, by the way, came through a lot of mentorship, which we give credit to the folks at Hub 71. We back then, 2021, joined Hub 71.
Okay.
And they gave us, of course, a lot of things like the incentive, a lot of financial support, a lot of access to market, clients, and so on and so forth, but also the mentorship, which is priceless. And the mentorship was, trying to walk us through, like, Jay, you have discovered a very interesting problem to solve. You have an amazing team. You're really driven, motivated. You've got the ecosystem support. Everything is in place. Like, ma'am, this is a 100%, the box is checked, right?
Yes.
Now, you need to build a scalable solution.
Yeah.
You need to think of how can you work in almost 40 countries or cities across the globe at no cost. And back then I was telling the mentor, why 40? It was like, because it's called FortyGuard. I was like, okay.
Trying to tie it
so
up.
how can you do that? How can you, and commercially, a lot of folks can come up with a lot of good ideas, but who can commercialize? Who can execute? And who can scale and grow whatever that they're doing, so it can, come into the hands of every user.
Yeah.
So we realized that we need to also look into a lot of sources of data.
Yeah.
And we have to look for passive data sources.
I was just about to ask, like, where do you get your data from?
Yeah. So we realized that data already exists.
You just need to collect it.
You just need to collect it. And we have been and still spending a lot of time working with partners out there that they have the data.
Okay.
And I kid you not, Ahmed, we go to clients, like, seriously, and we tell them, oh, you guys have temperature data outdoors. Would you sell it to us? Like, really? We had it. It's sitting there, but we never sold it before. Like, is it really useful? And then we tell them about the use cases and how we're building our engine. And they would be like really inspired, and they just want to work with us and enable us to get access to this data.
They give it to you for free? They still sell it to
Well,
you.
some of them they did.
Some of them did.
Some of them
Good
they
for
did.
them.
Yes. And but that is for, of course, the enablement of seeing them aligned in partnership with a company that is impact driven and is really solving for a very demanding problem. And look, at the end of the day as well, I think partnerships are developed in this manner.
Of course.
Because you don't just go to someone and ask them for money.
No.
You develop a relationship. So we've been developing a very good relationship with our thousands of data providers out there. And in order for us to kind of like engineer, ingest, access, work around all the privacy restraints, the data policies in place, because every country is like almost different than the other, and the regulations, and how we can, you know, filter this data, and how can we apply our quality check for the data to make sure that our data processing techniques are matching what the urban physics and the science is saying in our cities outdoors. We applied AI, and this is where the AI component came. So we took all of those data processes to turn them into machine learning models. And those models, they spoke to the fabric of the city. So because we're trying to collect temperature in the city, but also try to bring the temperature down in the city. So the solution is targeted for urban areas. Remember, focus. And this is where we are. So folks tell me, what about the ocean? It is important to reduce the temperature at the ocean. It is important to reduce the temperature in the forest. But I know that there are a lot of other folks who are doing that, and they're better than us doing it. We're focusing on the city. So urban places. And all of those machine learning models are very sophisticated models that we've been spending a lot of time not only developing them from the tech aspect, but also, and I'm proud to say that we have advisors, for instance, the CIO of Palo Alto previously, who is, you know, an expert in tech and data science and all of that, and a professor from MIT as well, both introduced through Abu Dhabi's ecosystem. And we've been working very closely with them and other folks in the academia, such as New York University in Abu Dhabi, who we have a partnership with, the University of Wollongong in Dubai as well, and others such as MBZUAI, which is Mohammed bin Zayed University of AI, and the Sorbonne University, but also internationally, bringing everyone together with us on board so we can enhance our machine learning models and make sure that the AI that we're building is AI fit for purpose. We only do outdoor temperature. And that AI has to be the smartest brain when it comes to temperature outdoor.
Is that the main reason why you went with an AI instead of like an algorithmic model?
So look, throughout AI and to develop your machine learning models, of course, you do a lot of algorithmic models, and it's part of the process.
Of course.
I think the AI in our side is not only to work on the quality of the data that we have and the models that we are doing for our analytics and insights, and I'll come to that, but also we map temperature. And in order for us to map temperature in a proprietary way, in a visually granular, appealing, and dynamic manner, we used AI so we can understand all the temperature dynamics and how we can build an interactive dashboard that allows you to navigate temperature in your city from your desktop without having to be on the ground. So where can we take this temperature realization or information to one understanding where are the hotspots? How relatively this is in comparison to other localities in your city? How can you go down to the 10 meter square or sometimes up to the meter square? How can you ingest your own data? How can you correlate this data with the land use, with the urban index, with the green cover? How can you understand why is it hot on those places in comparison to other places where the variation on temperature could be like 10 degrees Celsius, right? And more importantly as well, Ahmed, is since you're dealing with data and since you're mapping things, sometimes you go historically to understand what was the behavior and try to correlate this with real-time data, but also predictably try to understand how the future is going to look like. So all of this needs to be visualized in a very proprietary way, introducing dashboards, sophisticated maps, comparisons, different screens and different 360 views and other, satellite imagery, and the computer vision here comes into place. So you can allow the engineer, the urban planner, the environmental manager to understand the problem and also fix it. Understand what or could be the solution in order for me to bring that into the ground. I think what we succeeded in, and this is what really entertains me, by the way, is that we turned someone's journey as an engineer from 3 years to 3 minutes. That's the power of AI. That's where the world is changing.
Of course. Interestingly enough, what you're doing, honestly, is like that person, what they said is you're creating the brain of temperature. How much of it can you rely on it to give you data that's going to be like accurate in the future based on what you have right now, not only in comparison to like the past, but for example, if the temperature in a certain spot is hot, is it hot every day? Is it hot like today, like yesterday, et cetera, et cetera? And based on that data that you can collect, will you be able to, since you've been around now for 3 years, were you able to basically rely on this data to predict something that can happen in the future? And what is the percentage of accuracy?
Nice. So we call it confidence. So we want to get into a very good percentage in confidence in the data that we report, especially predictably for the future.
Yes.
And 95% is a very good confidence rate that we want to get into. It's fantastic. So we apply a lot of models by correlating temperature readings on the ground to other things, such as the urban index, such as the human industrial behavior of that city, such as understanding the green cover, how much plantation is there, how far are we from the coastal in terms of destination, how much those places are urbanized, what is the height of those buildings on those areas, if there are any industrial activities affecting those areas. We also look into some covariates and other correlated environmental analytics data that can help us as well understand the behavior of temperature throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and even throughout the year. And those are something could be a humidity, which is relative humidity. Those could be pressure, wind, direction, speed, and a lot of other things that we put together in order for us to understand in a structural and unstructural data sources, combining everything together to get to that accuracy that we want to get into.
All right. So you do have to rely on other data that has already been collected to perfect the data that you yourself collect as well.
Innovation is the enhancement of existing functionalities.
Of course.
No one is reinventing the wheel. You just need to know how to steer the wheel. This is what we're doing. By the way, this is kind of a statement that we make in almost every technical meeting we take. Whether you're a software developer, you're a data engineer, you're a machine learning scientist, whatever that you're doing, you need to understand that you are not here for the sake of inventiveness. You are given tools, data, information, different other things, functionalities in your hands, put them together, do something useful, but do something innovative. And that's where innovation comes. The other thing is problem solving.
Of course.
So I think as well that when you have a very clear understanding about the problem that you're solving for and where your focus is, it becomes really easy for you to play with the ingredients.
Yeah.
And the ingredients are out there. So when you understand what you want, and a lot of the mentors, I meet them and it's like, Jay, what do you want? And I was like, I'm here for the mentorship. It's like, no, you have to tell us what do you want, because if you don't know what you want, I can't help you. I need to know what is your problem. So I think because we understand what is our problem, which is again temperature, outdoors, and the understanding of all of that, it became very easy for us to navigate and understand what data sources we need to tap into, who are those data providers that we can work with, and how can we approach them so they can become our partners.
Very, very good. Listen, I'm blown away with how you're actually using the technologies on hand right now to figure out all this stuff. I mean, kudos to you. It's fantastic. Do you think, and I think you might be biased in answering this question, but do you think that a lot of this stuff was enabled because you were in Abu Dhabi?
So I am biased about this because Abu Dhabi is where my heart is. But look, I was born here, and all my friends, all my family, everyone is in this land. And I think this is, and it's not down to my thinking, this is a proven record, but this is a land of opportunities, really. And the ecosystem really allows you to think very clearly. So we grew up in the right manner. We engaged with the right, let's say, people. We engaged with the right environment. We learned or we had access to a lot of information and to best practices, getting the best curriculums in school, and being exposed to anything firsthand in terms of what is introduced to this world. I mean, I used to code when I was 13, right? And I remember in probably in other countries, people didn't have access to computers. But we had so many in school. And we had teachers, we had the technology. And I also remember that some of those computers or devices were for like 30,000 dirhams back then, which is like 100,000 dirhams today, right? And they were all available for those students to get access to and work with and, try to do things. Abu Dhabi is a very interesting place with almost 200 nationalities and plus, where there is a lot of diversity. They also allow, and this is what I think, a lot of other entrepreneurs like myself use that quality to understand what can be tested and what can be brought to this world so it can be exercised by the all. And I think as well as that we, with that, security that we have in place, with that a very well-built infrastructure in terms of our legislation, how can you incorporate a company, ADGM, for instance, and which is an international practice following the common law, allowing entrepreneurs like myself to go and incorporate an innovation company out there, and then incubators and accelerators and ecosystems such as Hub 71. I know the folks who started Hub 71. I know how much dedication and work and best practice was given to that space. And it's massive. It's interesting, but also it's very welcoming. And it's a place where there are innovators. They don't invite them, they kind of like hug them to come on board. Like you should come in, you should come and build here. We'll introduce you to the market, we'll introduce you to the talent. We have people who speak your language. You can talk to them. We have folks who are willing to fund you. You can pitch them, And I think Abu Dhabi was first in that. And I got the honor, but also the pleasure, and I was entertained to see in my entrepreneur journey that there are a lot of other entrepreneurs as well who came from this ecosystem. And Ahmed, we're doing very well. You will be surprised.
I'm already
surprised. You are.
I'm already surprised.
You come down to Hub 71, where we have more than 200 plus startups in Abu Dhabi. And by the way, there are a lot of other accelerators and incubators in Abu Dhabi city. But I think the flagship of entrepreneurship in the city,
it's always the people that make the incubator. Yeah, it's the experience they have.
And the government as well. They've been really, and from the leadership,
of course,
giving a lot of attention to us. And I kid you not, I have all access to go and talk to anyone, of course, in the proper manners and everything, about where do we need support.
Yeah.
And I'm always heard.
Wow.
And this is not heard in terms of hand or head shaking. This is heard in terms of execution. We want to help you, and we can because you're building something.
Yeah.
And the enablement is not only for you to build and grow something for the UAE, it's from the UAE to the UAE, but to the world.
Yeah.
So they want to enable you take this to Europe, to the States, and they've been putting me on board with a lot of delegations to go and, sourcing for us external funding, talking to other stakeholders that are internationally out there, and helping me engage with others who can help me build a very scalable solution so this technology can be for all.
If I learned one thing from you today, is focus. And do you ever believe that FortyGuard might shift its focus in the near future to something that is within the realm of temperature?
So focus is in the sense of direction. You need to have a good sense of purpose. FortyGuard is solving for temperatures, and we want the world to know that in the future, where is this Google for temperature? Where obviously we're not going to become Google, but we want to become the source of temperature. We want folks to come to us. We want to be there to solve for those problems. I think FortyGuard is going to continue to focus on being an impact-driven company. We want to, next to what we're doing in terms of our software, personalize the use of temperature. So we want to enable the engine to help other software enterprise get access to our data. So if there is, a navigation app, they can probably tell you about your next walking distance based on a cooler route rather than a shorter one.
Interesting.
If there is a property listing app, they can tell you based on microclimate conditions where to buy, rent, or if it's an Airbnb, stay at a place that has good conditions. We want to enable health applications. We want to enable things in the logistics, in the food insecurity, in the tourism sector. We want to be the source that when it comes to temperature and anything correlated to it, we want to come in as an incentive and help all of those folks out there personalize the use of temperature to their users. So I can take my mission and the products and the solutions in terms of data analysis and insights to the hands of the consumer. I want to enable everyone understand their decisions and how is it correlated to temperature. Because I also believe that, temperature is a challenge that keeps evolving, that keeps increasing. And we want to be at the front where we can provide the information to everyone in the ecosystem to understand what can they do to, mitigate the risk of heat. I think a lot of places across the globe, I don't know if you heard about this, Ahmed, just to entertain you at the end of this.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the frog experiment?
No.
In school?
The dissection, you mean?
So probably your kids heard about it. Okay. I know you have 3.
3 boys left.
That's an interesting startup that you have. So the frog experiment, and this is not real science, by the way, it's just an experiment. They put a frog into boiling water, and the frog just jumps out, right? Yeah. And then they put the same frog into a chilled water, and they start boiling it, so heating it up. And what happens is that the frog keeps adapting to that temperature until it dies at the spot.
Wow.
Yeah. So I believe that we keep accommodating and adapting our lifestyle and the way that we live to cope with temperature. So, better HVAC systems, more indoor activities, and so on and so forth, to the point that I think at some point all across the globe, we're going to get to a threshold.
Yeah.
And it will be very difficult for us to really accommodate that increase in temperature, especially in our cities, in urban areas,
of course,
where there is a lot of movement.
Carbon emission and all that stuff as well for the buildings.
100%.
Cooling down those places, of course.
And, when it comes to urban heat, we own it 100%.
Yes.
Our contribution to urban heat is 100%.
Yep.
We urbanize those cities, we build them, now we own it, now we have to bring a solution to it.
Yep.
And what I'm very hopeful about, and I'm a product of as well, a lot of, I call it positivity. I'm a very positive person. Ask me every day, how am I doing? I tell you, I'm having the best time of my life. I continue to have the best time of my life every day. And that positivity is coming from what I can see, that there's a lot of understanding out there to, not only what we're building, but also an understanding of the problem, how this could impact generations to come, and what is it that we need to do today so we can, build a better future for our kids tomorrow.
Jay, I had a great time talking to you. It's fantastic what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck, especially with what's going to be in the card right now, because it's time to actually see what's in the card. So if you please,
nice,
you can pull it out again and read it.
Sure. The same card, yeah?
Same card, of
I
course.
can't change my mind.
No.
That's it.
Yep.
Wow. This is a very long question. You've been a very good listener. Maybe you should help me with the answer. So if you had the ability to clearly see the future, which is very interesting. By the way, I think one of the skills that good founders can have is that they can see the future. They can't predict it, by the way, but they can see it. They can see it in many ways.
That's how they know where they're going.
Yep. But because no one else can see it the same way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes them special.
So if you had the ability to see the future, I hope I do, and a parallel time, what do you envision for the future of technology in the sustainability field? Thank you for asking a question in sustainability. That wasn't about cars. And how do you see yourself contributing to realizing that future? Very interesting. Are you going to help me?
Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
You already have the vision of the future, and you're in a parallel universe somewhere.
Yep.
Where you can basically implement the technologies that you need for a better sustainability in our future. You mentioned something that was very interesting in the podcast. You said if you talk to anybody about sustainability, they're on board.
Yep.
Everybody wants sustainability, right? Who doesn't? Where are the technologies laid today to help your future become a reality?
Love it. So I think one of the things that helped us succeed today, and a lot of that reality really needs to evolve for a lot of other tech, and of course ours in the future, is when you put things on the table, they're not only for the sake of sustainability, but they make an account. And that account is basically helping decision makers see how far their dollar can go, not only in impact, but also in financial returns.
Yeah.
Technology is enabled not only by the call or the incentive of it, but also when it's commercially viable.
Yes.
And this is how, if you see across time going backwards, and we can only connect the dots backwards, right? This is what Steve Jobs says. You will only realize that a lot of tech at the inception of bringing that tech to life, like solar panels and all of those things, didn't make any commercial sense. And now they do. and the only reason that they do, and they're starting to, become a counterstone, like a cornerstone or an important pillar in the way that we're driving energy and sustainable energy in our cities today, is that because, again, they're commercially viable. So the way that I see sustainability and the future is that when sustainability becomes part of every single business decision that we made, and it becomes not a section or a department in our companies, but becomes more of a direction. It's something that every company has on board. Like, as much as every company wants to make financial returns, they want to do this sustainably. I see that the future is going to be like this. And it's not a product of choice. I think this is going to become the default of things, because technology is evolving in a way that is actually making our world a lot more sustainable. Now, folks might argue that maybe it's not, and maybe it is, but I think it is. And I also think that is the future in terms of our cities is very bright. And that's why I want to be on board of that, or with. And, and I think this is the perfect timing for a lot of tech to look into sustainability and build solutions, whether it's in climate tech, clean tech, or the environmental sector, that is really impact driven and looks into adding more viability to their commercial models and the way that they're bringing their solutions and product to market. If someone asks me, and again, I'm very optimistic, right? How's the future? The future is going to be amazing. And it will be a lot more sustainable. It will be a wonderful world. It's something that all of us are going to enjoy. We're all gonna hopefully live longer. We're all gonna have, I won't call it an easy life, but a much more sustainable life. Our kids are going to enjoy a very sustainable future. Our cities are putting this in their agenda almost in every call, in every decision. It's a big highlight now of the year is that we have COP28 in the UAE. And there is only one reason to why COP is happening in the UAE, is because we see the future. And the future without sustainability is not a future. So I think this is where we're all heading, and this is how I see things going forward.
I hope we get to that future. Sounds very beautiful. And on that note, best of luck with what you're doing. I think it's fantastic.
We need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Okay, so we have reached the end of our talk with Jay Sadiq. Please make sure to check out the links below if you're interested in following him with his endeavors to reach that beautiful future that he just talked about and making it into reality. Because here at 100X Podcast, this is what we talk about. This is who we meet, visionaries of the future. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.